Hello. I am alive. I am a human, and I am here on Earth still. And it's probably been a good 6 months since I've talked to you guys, which is fucking insane. It's been a weird time for me. Been a weird few months. Been a few false promises and some disappointing things happening. But then bouncing back a few times, and then there's still some confusing things going on that I need to work out. But anyway, I wanted to come back and do a happy video because it's been something that's been on my mind a lot recently, and it's a kind of a band that I've been obsessing over for the past few weeks now. And I think I'm finally ready to delve really deep into this discography. And I might do a Q&A and a little bit more of a ramble-on video to talk about some things that have been going on in my life recently. I know I never came back to talk about the Good, the Bad, and the Queen songs, but both of them are just fine. That's all I gotta say about those Good, the Bad, and the Queen songs. Neither one of them beat anything that's on the actual album Maryland. They're good. They're good songs, and I'm glad to have them. So let's talk about Electric Light Orchestra. Jeff Lynne, he is a genius. He's a masterful songwriter. You can tell that he just loves making music. And I've been quite obsessed with ELO lately. They're kind of like the Beatles of the 70s, and I think that's why I like them so much. They went way past the 70s as well, but I think their strongest period was definitely during that time. So let's get into this, shall we? Without further ado, I'm going to go through pretty much everything that ELO have put out all the way up to 2015's Alone in the Universe. I'm going to be talking about a little bit about Zoom, which came out in 2001. The gap between A Balance of Power in 1986 to Zoom was that long. 1986 to 2001 from their next release. So this is really going to be delving in from the very beginnings of ELO all the way to the most recent times. So to start off this countdown, the worst ELO album is definitely Alone in the Universe. What the hell? I can totally see why they stopped here. This is essentially just a Jeff Lynne fucking solo project now. And I don't know, like, all of the songs on this album kind of go in one ear, out the other. This is one of the most forgettable ELO projects I've ever heard in my life. When I Was a Boy and Love and Rain, the first and second tracks on this album are pretty good. But other than that, this is a great album to put on when you're talking to people and not listening to music. So if that's what you're looking for, then give this a try. This is just something that kind of passes the time by. You're not really focused on nothing. It doesn't really propel any emotion. To me, a lot of the songs on this album kind of feel like listening to the sound of like a white wall. It's just kind of there. It's not really offensive, but it doesn't really give you anything either. And just not really into this one pretty much at all. I kind of hate that I own it, almost. But I'm trying to collect the full discography. I'm still missing one, but it will be in my collection just so I can say that I have the whole discography. Next up is Secret Messages. This album was originally planned back in its original concept to be a double album. It was going to be like a white album kind of deal. Thank God that didn't work out though, because I don't really enjoy this thing. This is the first album to come out of ELO's 1980 output. The song Secret Messages is really good. I also really like the track Bluebird. Take Me On and On is pretty good when I'm in the mood for it. Four Little Diamonds is an absolute banger, though. Four Little Diamonds, when I was introduced to this song in Grand Theft Auto Vice City, I really wanted to listen to the album that track came off of, but unfortunately that song is kind of sandwiched in between a bunch of mediocrity here. Stranger is a pretty good song. Train of Gold is alright, and Rock and Roll King is a really good way to end this album. It's just so jumping through different things that you're in the mood for, and a little bit of a combination. It's just a mixed bag. I really wish that Loser Gone Wild was a little bit more engaging. I mean, he's just playing with some weird time signatures, and it actually mentions that in the liner notes of this album when Jeff Lynne talked about all of these records, that he was just trying to, you know, do a little experimentation with that track. And I don't know, some things panned out better than others. This is definitely an album that I have to skip a few tracks, I guess you can say, to get to the gold. But there's some things that are pretty redeemable about it still. Next up is No Answer, ELO's first album. This is definitely not one of those bands where they hit their peak at the very first record. This is one of the rare times where I find this record especially to be better in the second half than I do the first half. The overture at the very beginning is a pretty good song, but after that, I can't really get into this thing until the track called First Movement. Other than that, the beginning songs I find to be kind of crappy. I don't really enjoy how the vocals sound kind of shouty on a few of those opening cuts, but as you get further into it, pretty much all the tracks after First Movement I can really get into. So I'm a side B listener of the first ELO album. Kind of crazy. I'm not really used to that. Usually albums are kind of top-loaded, but this one I find better to be in the second half. So I also really like how heavily the strings are involved in ELO's inception. They really went hard into the orchestra stuff. And that's something that kind of puts this album a tiny bit above the 1980s output, where Jeff started using a little bit less string instrumentation in favor for what was popular at the time, more synthesizers. So I really like hearing the violins and the cellos really clearly on this record, so it kind of puts it a little bit step ahead, even though I'm not absolutely in love with every track on it, but I do really like the entire second half of this thing, so that's pretty cool. It did grow on me a little bit. After that, I would say that we can move on straight into ELO 2 as the next best album in their discography. This is the album that contains the longest material. There's only 5 tracks on it, but every song on this album, including one of them being 11 minutes long, is a pretty lengthy record. Some highlights of this one for me on ELO 2, just wanted to make sure. The Rollover Beethoven cover that ELO do on this record is really good. I really love the Rollover Beethoven cover. It adds some like different instrumentation. It changes up the flow of the song, how you originally would hear it. Changes up a few of the lyrics, but I really enjoy it. This entire album, when you get into a particular mood, I can really get into, honestly. I was surprised about how much I loved it after the first listen. Yeah, not a bad album at all, really. I just find some other albums to be a little bit better, but it's not bad. You get into the right mood, the entire 5-track album here is pretty good. Once again, kind of stays with that same kind of heavy on the instrumentation because they were in their early days. Next up, we're going to be skipping the third day to put Face the Music next, because I think On the Third Day is a little bit better than this album. I know this one is a little bit of a controversial opinion because this is the first album where we got our #1 single from this band in the Evil Woman, one of the songs that everybody knows from this band. But Fire on High is an amazing instrumental opening cut for this record. I just love this song. I mean, I love how the sampling that goes on in the background of it, it's a full instrumental cut, but it's very engaging, really catches your attention. I love it. And how it seeps into Waterfall, the next track on this album, really love that. Really kind of a slower track, but really engaging. And then that one kind of seams into Evil Woman, which is really good. And Night Rider, too, is a really good deep cut. Night Rider could almost be another single, in my opinion. Poker, I find this song to be a little annoying. Don't really care for that. Strange Magic. Strange Magic is another huge song for this band that's on this record, and I really love that song, instrumentally and lyrically. Down Hometown is pretty cool. He kind of tried his hand at doing a little bit of a country swing kind of song. It kind of reminds me of where I'm from, listening to that track. And One Summer Dream is kind of a dreamy, kind of sleepy track. I can listen to this full thing for sure. The track Poker I tempted to skip, but simply having Evil Woman and Strange Magic on this record put it a step above ELO 2 for me, even though I feel like I can probably listen to ELO 2 through its entirety more than I could this one, but the single tracks on this one I feel like are way stronger than ELO 2. So, Face the Music is next. Then after that, as I said before, we have On the Third Day, which now we're getting into the ELO albums where I have absolutely no problem listening to them all the way through, no skips, nothing. On the Third Day, the third ELO album, is very, very good. Ocean Breakup and King of the Universe, the mashup track that begins, is awesome. Bluebird is Dead, very awesome. Oh No Susan, great segue between those two songs. Once again, a New World Rising and Ocean Breakup reprise kind of brings back the melody from the first track. Really, really cool. And on side B, Daybreaker, an amazing instrumental. Love this song. Mama Belle is next after that track, which is a pretty good single for this band as well. Dreaming of 4000 is really good. And then the epic, so fucking cool, Hall of the Mountain King, that classical piece ELO covers on this thing, and it sounds so fucking badass. Oh my god, I love their version of In the Hall of the Mountain King for the last track on this record. So cool. Really, really good record. It took some time to grow on me, but it's really climbed up the list here, and it's pretty badass. I like it a lot. But an album I like even more than that one probably be El Dorado. El Dorado is definitely ELO doing their biggest orchestra sounding album. It has the biggest sounds of like the entire band behind them when it comes to the horn sections, and just the orchestra in general is very, very predominant on this album. It's definitely ELO's biggest orchestral piece altogether, and I think that's why I love this one so much. It's really, really good. The overture at the beginning, singing right into Can't Get It Out of My Head, which is a huge song for this band. Really like that one. Boy Blue, Laredo Tornado, Poor Boy. Really, really good. Side A, like, there's nothing bad about it. Mr. Kingdom is a very powerful, slow-moving song. I love that. And then there's like a bluesy kind of Nobody's Child, which sounds really, really fucking cool. Illusions in G Major is an awesome song. Like, the only track I could consider to be kind of weak on this thing is the title track before it goes into the orchestral instrumental outro song. But yeah, the track El Dorado, I guess, can be considered maybe a little boring, but I mean, like, the rest of the thing is just so really fucking cool. I mean, like, I love the orchestral pieces on this record. Really, really good. I like it a lot. Next up that I want to mention is the album that I don't own yet. It's actually kind of hard to find a copy of this record new, even though it came out in 2001. I don't understand why I can't find it at a cheap price, but the album's called Zoom, and it was the comeback album for ELO after releasing The Balance of Power in 1986, which we will talk about. Zoom is definitely ELO's best rocking album. If El Dorado was definitely their most orchestral, instrumental, refined record, then Zoom is definitely their best rocking album. The guitar, the electric guitar, is definitely the most predominant thing on this album, so if you're into that more than the orchestral stuff, you'll probably love Zoom. George Harrison and Ringo Starr worked really closely with Jeff on this album as well. And you can definitely hear some of that in Jeff Lynne's, in some of his melodies. It reminds me a lot of George Harrison's solo stuff. So check out Zoom if you haven't, because it's really, really cool. Now, these next few albums from ELO are definitely what I consider to be the golden standard of their discography. These are all albums that I definitely recommend that you check out. If you don't pull anything else from this fucking video, listen to these albums, because I think it's a great lesson in rock and roll history with these particular records. Next album I want to mention is Time by ELO. This was their first concept record. Actually, I think this one is actually one of their first albums from the 80s. It was ahead of Secret Messages. But it's so good. They really... Some people weren't a huge fan of this album when it first came out, because it really embraces more of a synthesizer-heavy style, because that's what was going on in the 80s at the time. But it's a concept record about a guy who falls into twilight and ends up in the future. Yours truly, 2095. So he ends up in the future and ends up falling in love with a robot. And some of the record is about him wanting to go back because he misses his girlfriend back in 1981. That's kind of the loose concept that this album is based off of. It's a fucking time travel piece. But it is so good how well some of these songs are stringed together with Prologue and Twilight. Yours truly, 2095, is such a fucking cool song. I love the vocal melody on this track. Take It to the Moon, really powerful song. The Life, Is This the Way Life's Meant to Be, is kind of like a beachy kind of tune, kind of relaxing. Another Heartbreaks and Rain is Falling. He's been opening up his ELO shows with Rain is Falling, and this just really sounds like synthesizer pieces are raining all over you. I just love how that sounds. From the End of the World is such a badass song. Oh my god. The Lights Go Down, kind of a reggae piece almost, and Hold On Tight to Your Dreams, ending out this record along with the prologue. So good. Here Is the News. Another huge fucking highlight from this album. It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. I love it. It's a good record. It's a good record. Now next up is the thank God, the only double album by ELO. Out of the Blue. This one is probably one of their most famous ones. It contains Turn to Stone and Sweet Talking Woman and oh, so many other amazing deep cuts. The only thing that I can say that is kind of bad about this album is I'm not a huge fan of the concerto that leads into Mr. Blue Sky. Probably the biggest song from this band. Yeah, the song says Standing in the Rain is a pretty good song. Big Wheels, not a bad song. The song Summer and Lightning, I feel, is a bit... No, but god damn, there's so many amazing songs, because it is a double album. I mean, there's like 18 songs on this thing. I think Standing in the Rain is the one they've been opening up on. I think I mentioned Rain is Falling on time, but no, it's Standing in the Rain off of Out of the Blue. But yeah, man, just the opening of it, Turn to Stone, It's Over, Sweet Talking Woman, Across the Border, all of those songs really, really strong. A-side, Night in the City, Starlight, huge highlight. Jungle's really cool. Believe Me Now, seeping into Stepping Out. Really love that transition. The concerto leading into Mr. Blue Sky. Mr. Blue Sky being the best part of it. Still, in my opinion. Sweet as the Night. The Whale is a really good kind of chill fucking psychedelic instrumental. Birmingham Blues, cool song. And then Wild West Hero ending out this album. I don't know, it's just it's a really strong record, one of the best double albums of all time. You can put it up against the White Album or Exile on Main Street, in my opinion. If you want to go into double albums, or Physical Graffiti, to name another one. Blonde on Blonde, even though I don't really care for Bob Dylan that much. But, great double album. Definitely put it there with the White Album and Exile on Main Street for sure. And Physical Graffiti. because Physical Graffiti is one of my favorite Led Zeppelin albums of all time. Next up, after that one, this is going to be kind of controversial, coming after Out of the Blue, but I actually really, really, really enjoy A Balance of Power. Some people kind of hate this album because it is the last album that ELO put out as kind of a full group before Jeff Lynne almost turned it into his solo project nearly 15 years later, but I love every single track on this album. It's like Heaven Only Knows, So Serious, Getting to the Point, Secret Lives, It's All Right. I love them all. Sorrow About to Fall is probably my favorite song out of the entirety of ELO's 80s output. Sorrow About to Fall is a very, very, very strong song for me. Without Some One's really, really cool. Calling America is a pretty huge song that came off of this album. Endless Lies really good, and Send It's really good. I have a shit ton of fun listening to this album, and I know it's fucking insane that I put this over Out of the Blue, but Out of the Blue has some songs that I don't really care for, but this one I like the whole way through, so I don't know. That's just how I feel. That's just how I feel. Out of the Blue is so high because it's just, you know, an amazing double album with so many amazing songs that just makes up for it, that it's just, it has to be that far up. But yeah, Balance of Power, I fucking love this album. I don't understand why people don't like it. I don't get it. The songs are fun as hell and catchy. I love it. Now we get into the top two. I guess it's kind of obvious. A New World Record. These two albums kind of go back and forth with being my number one, number two favorites, but oh man, you can't get any more perfect. Well, you can get a little bit more perfect, but it's so close to being perfect. Tightrope, Telephone Line, Rock Aria. I mean, So Fine, Living Thing, Do Ya, Shangri-La. Oh my god. There's nothing wrong with it. It's absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. You have to listen to this. Listen to A New World Record. Please listen to A New World Record. Oh god, if you don't take anything from this video, please listen to this album. And my favorite, number one, No Holds Bar's absolute favorite ELO album of all fucking time, Discovery. I love Discovery. I love it so much. Shine a little love for my life. Starting out this album, oh, it's so good. It's so fucking good. Confusion, I love it. Need Her Love is one of my favorite slow ballad songs of the entire discography. The Diary of Horace Wimp. It's kind of like a Rocky Raccoon kind of song, kind of a character piece, telling the story of a guy who's getting married and trying to find a wife. Kind of cool. I really like that track. Last Train to London. Holy shit, the bass line on Last Train to London is so fucking fun. I love it so much. Makes me want to go to the disco. Which is where the name of this album came from, by the way. Disco. Very. You put the words together. Discovery. No shit, that's how this album's fucking named this. A Midnight Blue. Another beautiful love song. It's gorgeous. On the Run. Good, a little electronic piece. Sounds like their 80s output, but this was still in the 70s. Wishing. Oh, great song. Great fucking song. A lot of emotion in that track. A lot of emotion. And then, of course, the biggest song by this fucking band, Don't Bring Me Down, ends out this record. How can it get any more fucking perfect than that? So, thank you for letting me justify my love for this band in this video. I hope to be back and see you again in sooner than 6 months. I have no idea why I left for this long. I really have no idea. I mean, I have some idea, but I'll talk to you about it later, hopefully, if anyone cares. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Maybe check out some ELO. I know some people only probably know the singles, but check out the entire discography. There's something in there for everyone. And that's the coolest thing about them, the Beatles of the 70s. That was Jeff Lynne's mission, and I think he accomplished it in a lot of ways. Not as masterfully as the Beatles, but there's a few albums in there. He got pretty damn close. So, thank you guys for listening. Glad to be back. see you guys again soon, hopefully, and peace and love.